Hello, History Through Film. Welcome to U3-L20 Intro to American Sniper. Now, last year, American Sniper by far was probably the most popular movie that we watched in class. So, there is a little bit of a change in your study guide that I just want to make you aware of. So, beforehand, we had like kind of those question and answer kind of like throughout the movie that you would do. It's a little bit different this time. So with American Sniper, at the end of each of like the 30-minute chunk videos that I give you to watch on Edpuzzle, there's going to be some sort of big question. So as you watch American Sniper and when you come across those big questions, you're going to answer them here in your study guide. And then also make sure that you develop at least two questions that you have about anything regarding the film, and then, of course, do the movie review. So that's what you need to do for American Sniper. And then, of course, today, as we go throughout the slideshow, make sure that you are answering the questions that are in magenta text. All right, let's get started. So, first thing we're going to talk about is 9/11. So, my question for you, now just answer this one on the Edpuzzle. You don't have to write this in your study guide. What was 9/11? Or is there anything that you know about 9/11? So, it happened to the World Trade Center, and those were two very large skyscrapers located in New York City. They're primarily used just as offices and training center for multiple countries. They were also called the Twin Towers, if you ever hear that too. There was also a restaurant at the top of it, which is kind of interesting. Here's a picture of it. So this is what they look like. So they're really, really iconic in the background of like the New York City skyline. I mean, you have these two twin towers, and you can see them from like the Statue of Liberty. I mean, you could pretty much see them anywhere from like your advantage point in New York City. They were very, very iconic. So on September 11th, 2001, both twin towers were destroyed. It ended up killing 2,977 people. The Pentagon was also targeted. If you don't know what the Pentagon is, that's like the headquarters of the US military. And it got its name because it's actually shaped like a pentagon shape. And that's where a Boeing 757 crashed into the Pentagon, killing 184 people. So there's some videos that I put in here. I won't play them because it's hard to hear them when I play them like through one of my recording videos. But if you want to go and kind of watch these videos, they're really, really impactful about what like the 9/11 timeline is. So just go to the resource folder and click on the slideshow, and you can play them right from the slideshow. There you go. Here's another one about the Pentagon too. They're very good videos. They're not very long either. So if you want to go look at them, feel free to. All right. So there was another plane during the 9/11 attacks. It was targeting somewhere in Pennsylvania. The destination was unknown of where it was going. And it's thought to probably have been going to the White House or somewhere in Washington, D.C. But the really brave thing about these passengers that were in this other third plane um, was that they actually figured out what was going on, that they were being hijacked, and they um, took control of the plane and crashed it in a field before it could hit any building. There's a movie about that. I have it. What is it called? It's like Flight something, something, something. Um, it's a Flight 93. It's a good movie. Uh, Yes, Flight 93. Here's also a little video from the History Channel about Flight 93 and like the bravery of the passengers. Again, another very impactful video that you are more than welcome to go watch. So, who was behind the 9/11 attacks? So, there was a total of 19 terrorist pilots. They were from this extremist group called Al Qaeda. The mastermind was this dude named Osama bin Laden from Afghanistan. Here's a pic of him. So, why did Al Qaeda want to attack the Middle East? That's a good question. So, America was influencing the Middle East, and they were aiding Israel in the fight against Palestine and the Arabs. There was the coup in 1953, the Iran Contra affair, and there's many more other reasons, but a lot of it revolved around um, foreign relations with the Middle East. If you remember when we watched Argo, there's a slideshow that I did. A lot of that factors into why 9/11 happened. So why is 9/11 significant? So it was the first time in many decades that there was a mass attack in the United States. The time before that was Pearl Harbor, and that was back in what, 41, 1941? Ooh, and I'm nervous that I got that date wrong. Or is it 1942? I should know this. I'm a history teacher. Anyway, it was many decades. There we go. So, question number one, you're going to answer this in your study guide. What was 9/11? Give me at least 3 pieces of information. All right. Next question, but this one, just answer on the Ed puzzle. What do you think the US will do in response to 9/11? Yes, the US goes to war. So they go to war against Afghanistan. This war lasts from 2001 all the way until August of 2021. So what? Just that happened, what, like 2 years ago? It finally ended. The goal for the war in Afghanistan was to take revenge on 9/11, to also dismantle Al Qaeda, which was the group that had the terrorist pilot, and then to kill Osama bin Laden, who was the head of Al Qaeda. They also wanted to remove the Taliban from power. They were the head of the government in Afghanistan. They still are today. The US tried and they failed. Um, and they also go to war with Iraq, and it's the Iraq war that Chris Kyle is fighting in. So he's the main character of American Sniper. So, question number 2, write this in your study guide. What did the US do in response to 9/11? All right, now let's talk about the Iraq War. So, if you're like, wait, where is Iraq? So, here is a map of the Middle East, okay? So you'll see some like more well-known countries like Egypt, there's Turkey up there, um, Saudi Arabia, which is like the giant desert country. So Iraq is right here in the middle of the Middle East. If you want to know where Afghanistan was, that's where I was talking about the country just like a couple slides ago. Afghanistan's over here. They're a little bit closer to India and more into Asia. But now we'll focus right here on Iraq. So this lasted from 2003 to 2011, and it started under the presidency of George W. Bush. The U.S. military was in war with Afghanistan over 9/11 attacks during this time too. So the US is fighting 2 wars, one in Afghanistan, one in Iraq. So why did the US want to be at war with Iraq? You're probably thinking like, wait a minute, wasn't like the terrorists from Afghanistan? Why Iraq? It's because President Bush was convinced that the Iraqi leader Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction. So here's a picture of Saddam Hussein right here. And also because the US wanted to get oil, right? We talked about that with Argo too, I believe. It's all about the oil. So what are weapons of mass destruction? So those are chemical, biological, or nuclear weapons. Okay, so chemical weapon examples could be something like sarin, which is a nerve gas, and that's where the brain can't transmit information to the rest of the body. So pretty much you become paralyzed. You choke to death because your lungs will stop working. So that's awful. And a biological example of a weapon of mass destruction includes Q fever, which is bacterial and it causes pneumonia. Pneumonia is where there's liquid in your lungs and you pretty much like drown yourself to death without ever being in water. And also infection. And then an example of a nuclear weapons of mass destruction would be like the atomic bomb, which of course we'll talk about in a little bit a few days from now with Hiroshima. And that's where radiation and heat can kill millions instantly, destroys ecosystems, and also causes cancer in survivors. So those are examples of weapons of mass destruction. So, question number 3, write this in your study guide. What are weapons of mass destruction? I know, a very lighthearted topic today. So here is a video. I won't play it because again, it doesn't work very well when I play it through my video recorder. But it is a video of President Bush talking about weapons of mass destruction. It's kind of interesting to listen to him speak. So again, remember the Iraq War that began because President Bush was convinced that Iraq had these weapons of mass destruction and he was going to stop them. But according to the Center of Public Integrity, President Bush talked about weapons of mass destruction publicly, so for anyone to hear, okay, for the American public, for the world to hear, 935 times. But after the Iraq War ended in 2011, the CIA, which is the Center of Intelligence, oh my gosh, I forgot. Is that government agency that like goes into foreign countries? They searched Iraqi buildings and they found 0 weapons of mass destruction. 0. President Bush was lying this whole time. Crazy. So the war was pretty much for nothing. All right. So it ends in 2011. 200,000 innocent Iraqi civilians are dead. 4,200 US soldiers are dead. The US is successful in killing Saddam Hussein back in 2006. So they were like, they invaded Saddam Hussein's house and they're like, oh, where did he go? Like the US military was looking for him. He like disappeared. Some of the US military soldiers were like walking around, like trying to find him. And then all of a sudden they came across this like hole in the ground. And they're like, what the heck is this hole in the ground? Like, is it a well? Is someone like hiding some treasure or something? And they lift off the metal cap to this hole, and in it, just standing right there, just looking up at them, was Saddam Hussein. So that's how they found him. He was just hiding in a hole. They were also successful in the one thing about the Iraq War was that they were successful in creating a democratic republic in Iraq. So people have a little bit more voice into like their political leaders. So 3 reasons why the US attacked Iraq in 2003. Okay. First reason, they thought that Iraq was developing nuclear weapons, which was false. The Iraqi citizens had no rights under Saddam Hussein's regime. And 3, the US believed Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction, which ended up that there were 0. All right, now let's talk about Chris Kyle, because he is the main dude in American Sniper. So, have you ever heard of Chris Kyle before? If so, what do you know about him? If nothing, you can just type none. So, Chris Kyle, he was the son of a church deacon and a Sunday school teacher. He's considered the most lethal sniper in all of US history. He had 160 confirmed kills. And again, like I said before, he served in the Iraq War. So here's a picture of Chris Kyle, like in real life. Here is a picture of Bradley Cooper, who like is the actor who plays Chris Kyle. And you can see they did a great job with casting. I mean, come on, they look like twins. It's crazy. So he grew up in Texas. The only previous gun experience he had before he entered the military was hunting with his dad. At 24, he dropped out of college and joined the Navy SEALs. He was known as a very gentle person. He said, "If I see a puddle," he told Time magazine, "I will walk around it." So he was deployed to Iraq in 2003. His first mission was to help the Marines take back Baghdad, which was the capital of Iraq. His job was to be the eyes on top of the roof and then snipe anyone who may harm the U.S. soldiers on the ground. So here's kind of a interesting kind of like story about Chris Kyle, and kind of like his mentality when it came to warfare. So I'll read this out loud to you. It says 50 yards away, he suddenly saw the door of a small house open and a woman step outside with her child. As she neared the Marines, Kyle watched through the crosshairs as the woman reached beneath her robe and pulled out a yellow grenade. "Take a shot," ordered Kyle's platoon chief. Kyle hesitated as the Marines continued to march closer. "Shoot!" cried the chief. Kyle squeezed the trigger twice. The woman fell dead on the ground along with the exploding grenade, which did no harm to the Marines. It was Kyle's first kill with a sniper rifle. Many more deadly shots would be fired, but the hesitation would never return. "It was my duty to shoot, and I don't regret it. The woman was already dead. I was just making sure she didn't take any Marines with her." All right, so he would go on to do 3 more tours of duty in 2004, '06, and '08. He could hit targets accurately from 1.2 miles away. The Iraqi government put a bounty on him of about $20,000. And the Iraqi government called him the Devil of Ramadi. And Ramadi was a city in Iraq where Kyle was stationed back in 2006. So he had a lot of challenges in his personal life. You'll see it throughout the movie. He left the Navy in 2009. His wife told him to leave the Navy or else their marriage would be over because the Navy it was becoming too much on his mental health. He really struggled transitioning from military to civilian life. You'll see that in the movie. He struggled with his role of being a father. And although he left the war didn't leave him. So there is some controversy about Chris Kyle too. Like the movie really like sets him up to be like this glorious dude. But there are a few faults about him that, as a historian, you always have to have two sides of the story. So he stated in his autobiography that he punched Jesse Ventura in a bar after Ventura allegedly mocked the SEALs team. If you don't know who Jesse Ventura is, he was the governor of Minnesota, but he's also a pro wrestler. Very strange times in Minnesota history. So Ventura claims he never met Kyle. Ventura would end up winning a $1.8 million lawsuit over the false allegations. There's also a controversy that Kyle falsely inflated his unofficial kill number. So that's like the number of people he killed besides the ones that the US government could confirm. He also lied about killing 2 men who tried to carjack him in Dallas, Texas. That was just a complete lie that he wrote about in his book. So, just wanted to put that out there. All right. So here's kind of like the summary from IMDb about American Sniper in the movie. So Navy SEAL sniper Chris Kyle's pinpoint accuracy saves countless lives on the battlefield and turns him into a legend. Back home with his family after 4 tours of duty, however, Chris finds that it is the war that he can't leave behind. Ooh. So, question number 4, write this in your study guide. In 2 to 3 sentences, predict what you think will happen in the movie American Sniper. All right, so next up. So here's kind of the calendar that we have going on, right? So we're right here, U3-L20. You are going to start watching American Sniper. So that's going to be lessons 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. Lesson 26 is kind of like a worksheet that you have to do. I hate calling it a worksheet. There's 2 videos on the Google Docs that I give you. You have to watch the 2 videos and then answer the questions below. And then after that, I will see you back at lesson 27 for the intro to the other side of war, which is one of the videos that I make. Yeah, crazy stuff. All right. Let me know if you have any questions. I am more than happy to answer them. If not, I hope you have a great time watching American Sniper. See ya.